Now, I don't know if I've ever met a mom that didn't think their baby was special, right? She's like, this is the special baby. And you're like, sure it is. By the way, don't go to the next baby that you meet. Look at our special. He ain't no Moses. Don't say that. Don't say that. Special in their own way. You know, the good thing about Mother's Day is that everybody's got a mama in some way, shape, or form. Um, there's many of you that also maybe want to one day be a mom. I remember over the years as a youth pastor, some of the teenagers going, well, I don't need to listen today, right? It's about Mother's Day, and I'm not a mom. I'm like, no, well, you got a mama, don't you? And one day, some of you might be mamas, and some of you, really desire that. And so there's going to be something in here today for you. And then obviously, I know that sometimes Mother's Day can be kind of painful for others. Maybe you're missing your mama. Maybe you never had a mom, and or the relationship with your mom is strained, and this can be kind of a tough day. So understand that we see you and we understand, and I get it. While some people celebrate, maybe you don't have as much to celebrate. But I think God has something for you today, even if you're in one of those situations. My goal this morning is to encourage and challenge you if you're a mom, right? I want this to be not only something that makes you not just a pat on your back. Sometimes you need a pat on your back. Sometimes you need a kick in the pants, right? It's just life, right? And so we want to give you maybe a little bit of both. And for those of you that aren't a mom, we want to help you appreciate. A lot of times, one of the best things we can do is just stop and think and appreciate the gifts that God has given us, including our mom. But the reason we do all this is because moms, you matter. You really matter, and it's easy to do the rinse and repeat and go through the motions of a Mother's Day and do it under threat of violence. Like, why do we always go, you better not forget Mother's Day? Like that's not the only reason is to not die, to remember your mom. But the enemy loves to attack mothers. The enemy knows that if we can tear down the importance of motherhood, then the kingdom of God is harmed, because motherhood is in God's plans for the flourishing of everyone. And so today we're going to be in Exodus 1. And those of you that were with us a few years ago when we went through Exodus, this setting is going to be familiar, but I don't think we took this angle with it when we talked about it. But there are three types of moms that we are going to meet here this morning. Now, I know I don't want to boil you all down. You're like, I'm a special mother. I'm not like any of those. I'm different, And okay, yes, you are. But I think you will probably fit into one of these categories as a mom today that we're going to look at. We're also going to look at three particular ways that these moms loved, because you mamas love in so many different ways. And it was really stirring and encouraging and profound when I realized that even in the story of Exodus, we see the love of moms doing amazing things. And then I want to end today with three ways that we can honor our moms in our life. And so let's what we're going to do, we're going to read through the end of Exodus 1 and go into the first of Exodus 2. And we're going to stop, take some potty breaks, if you will, on the trip, take some stretch breaks, and we're going to meet these three different types of moms first. So let's start in Exodus 1, beginning with verse 15. Now, if you don't know the Exodus story, that's okay. We'll catch you up real quick. This is the story of God's people they were at this point enslaved to the Egyptians. So the Israelites were slaves to the Egyptians. They were they had all their favor had run out. This Pharaoh was enslaving them, and he was putting them to work. And it was in this kind of this atmosphere of oppression that we see the love of moms shine through. So let's start with verse 15. It says, "Then Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, gave this order to the Hebrew midwives, Shiphrah and Puah. When you help with the Hebrew women as they give birth, watch as they deliver. If the baby is a boy, kill him. If it is a girl, let her live. But because the midwives feared God, they refused to obey the king's orders. They allowed the boys to live too. So the king of Egypt called for the midwives. "Why have you done this?" he demanded. "Why have you allowed the boys to live?" And the Hebrew women, this is what they said: "The Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women," the midwives replied. "They are more vigorous and have their babies so quickly we can't get there in time." Sound like some of y'all's excuses for certain things. You're like, "Oh, I really tried really hard." Well, this is actually one of those moments, and this is a whole sermon for another day, but if you have to choose between bending the truth and saving someone's life from being killed, you should probably do what it takes to keep that kid alive, just so you know. But anyway, keep moving. It says in verse 20, it says, "So God was good to the midwives." Apparently he approved of this tactic. "And the Israelites continued to multiply, growing more and more powerful. And because the midwives feared God, he gave them families of their own. Then Pharaoh gave this order to all his people: throw every newborn Hebrew boy into the Nile River, but you may let the girls live." So it's getting a little important for moms. It's a dire time to be a mother. But the first type of mom that we meet here today isn't actually a mother yet at all. I'm talking about the type of mom that is a advocating mom. That first blank, if you want to fill in on your sheets there, we are meeting advocating moms. Now, Shifra and Pua, which, by the way, they're heroes. Why don't you name your kids these names? I don't understand. I don't see, is anybody's middle name Pua? No? Okay. Saying it's right there. It's heroic. But these two ladies were heroes. They advocated, even though they weren't moms themselves, they advocated for the lives of these Hebrew babies that were in jeopardy. The advocating mom is kind of the most accessible type of mama. Has anybody ever felt the love of a mother from someone who was not actually their mom? Right? Maybe it's a teacher, maybe it's someone in church, maybe it's a neighbor. But this is the type of mom that you actually don't have to do all the the work of being a mom, but you still get to be somewhat of a mom. And they were advocates. And so really, as you saw these two, that was sort of the beta test for these two to become moms. This was the warm-up. They started being motherly before. Like I know some of you ladies, some of you are here, some of you I know in my life that I'm like, one day I know they're going to be a good mama. Because they just mother, even though they don't have to. They advocate. Which, by the way, advocate, the simple definition for that is to give a voice to the voiceless. That's what these Hebrew midwives were doing here. We're giving a voice to the voiceless. And let's be honest, that's a lot of times what moms are needed to do. The moms are needed to advocate on behalf of the voiceless. By the way, it's not just a mom thing. There's other people can be advocates. In fact, in 1 John 2:1, we see that all Christians have an advocate who pleads our case before the Father. He is Jesus Christ. So when you advocate, when these Hebrew midwives advocated for the lives of these babies, they were being Christ-like in what they did. They were going on behalf of those that couldn't themselves. They were giving a voice to the voiceless. Now notice I said, give a voice to the voiceless, not be a voice to the voiceless. I know it sounds like the same thing, but there's a lot of people that think they know what the voiceless need, and so they just push their own agenda in the process, and they do it to feel good about themselves. But there's a difference in doing that and making sure that those that cannot speak for themselves have the opportunity to have a voice. And that's what we need. We need advocates. If you look at the world around us, there are so many cases and so many people that need an advocate, that need someone to mother them, someone to wipe their mouths and pull their pants up and feed them and dust them off and do all the things that mamas do. And in this story here, these two women, they went to bat for these little kids. They said, even to the point of, I'm going to defy the Pharaoh. They're an advocate. And so that's the first type of mom that you see. And not all advocates are moms, but if you're doing what you should do as a mom, you are an advocate. You are a caretaker. But let's keep reading. We'll meet another one. In Exodus 2, it picks up at verse 1 like this. It says, about this time, a man and woman from the tribe of Levi got married. The woman became pregnant and gave birth to a son. She saw that he was a special baby and kept him hidden for 3 months. But when she could no longer hide him, she got a basket made of papyrus reeds and waterproofed it with tar and pitch. And she put the baby in the basket and laid it among the reeds along the bank of the Nile River. The baby's sister then stood at a distance, watching to see what would happen to him. Now, I don't know if I've ever met a mom that didn't think their baby was special, right? She's like, this is the special baby. And you're like, sure it is, right? It's nice. It's a creation of God. It's a gift of God. But this one actually was, Moses. It actually had generational impact, right? Don't, by the way, don't go to the next baby that you meet and look at our special. Oh, he ain't no Moses. Don't say that. Don't say that. Special in their own way. But I just find it funny that, this mom thought that this baby was special. I'm like, well, join the club. But anyway, this was a biological mom, right? This is the second blank on your sheets if you're following along. We meet a biological mom, the mom that we usually think about when we think about Mother's Day, right? And this was represented by this woman named Jochebed. Now you're going, wait a minute, are you just making up that name out of thin air? Well, I didn't see that in Exodus. Well, here's the cool thing about when you read past Exodus. I know some of y'all struggle. You get to Leviticus and Deuteronomy and Numbers, and you're like, oh, what is happening here? Well, if you get all the way to Numbers 26:59, you find out that there was this man named Amram whose wife was Jochebed. And she had 3 kids, Aaron, Moses, and Miriam, their sister. So you find out a little bit later, that's actually who that we're talking about here is Jochebed. And when I think of a woman like her, it reminds me of this truth, that God often uses mothers to do great things. That God, for whatever reason, decides that the office of motherhood, the relationship of motherhood, is going to be used throughout his redemptive story to do some amazing things. I mean, just think about who's the most popular mom, the most famous mom you can think of in the Bible. Anyone? Mary, right? Right? So now when you see a mom, he's no Jesus. Yeah. But Mary did have Jesus, right? And that's a big deal. I think about Hannah, the story of her really wanting to have a baby, and then she has Samuel, and he becomes a great prophet of God. Eve, Sarah. The Bible is just chock full of these amazing moms that do amazing things that God uses. Sometimes he uses their flaws. Sometimes he uses their faithfulness. But he uses them to accomplish great things for the world and for his kingdom. Now, it's easy for us in modern times to kind of, we make one of 2 mistakes. We either trivialize motherhood, and we downplay it, and we end up with moms who are underappreciated and underloved, and we don't see the value and the importance of that. But then you also have these moments where you just sort of accessorize motherhood, girl, I'm in my mom era, but it's all about you. It's not about God gave me. It's about this is my new thing now. I'm going to be a mommy, and they parade their kids out in their new strollers and stuff, but then they get home, they're like, ah, and they don't have time to deal with the kids on the backside. I've seen that all too often. But there can also, I've known some mamas who will turn mothership into an idol. As important as motherhood is, it's not. If you never become a mom, you are no less valuable. You are no less important to God. And so it's not I know some that they always wanted to be a mama, and if they weren't mothering, they didn't have an identity. They didn't have a cause. They didn't have a purpose. And I think we can turn motherhood into an idol as well, when it's no, God uses this for good, but it's not the only thing. But that does not mean, all these things can be true, but it does not mean that God doesn't want to use moms to be vitally important, right? No one is a mother by accident. Now, was it your accident? Maybe. Some of y'all as an accident. It wasn't an accident to God. God does too much. God is involved too much in making you a mom for God to go, whoopsie doodle. No, he intended in his great plan, you are the mother of that child. You're going, Lord, I don't understand it because that child, are you sure? It might be just to punish you. No, it's not. That's not true. But he gave you that kid for a reason. He made you a mom for a reason. And so if you're a biological mom, again, when you start understanding how many things could go wrong in the body, and then for that not to happen, and that's what the miracle of life, it really is a miracle. If you think about how the biology works, it's not an accident. But there's one more, Mom, I want you to see. Keep reading. Verse 5 says this. Soon Pharaoh's daughter came down to bathe in the river, and her attendants walked along the riverbank. When the princess saw the basket among the reeds, she sent her maid to get it for her. When the princess opened it, she saw the baby. The little boy was crying, and she felt sorry for him. This must be one of the Hebrew children, she said. When the baby's sister approached the princess, should I go and find one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you? She asked. Yes, do, the princess replied. So the girl went and called the baby's mother. Take this baby and nurse him for me. The princess told the baby's mother, I will pay you for your help. Some of you are like, you got paid to raise your kid? How did I miss that deal? So the woman took her baby home and nursed him and got paid for it. Didn't say that, but that's... Later, when the boy was older, his mother brought him back to Pharaoh's daughter, who adopted him as her own son. The princess named him Moses, for she explained, I lifted him out of the water. What we see here, number 3, is an adoptive mom. Those that adopt, that it's not her responsibility necessarily, but she made it her own. Pharaoh's daughter, even though she did it the bougie way and had a nanny that ended up being Moses' mom, but she still did it. She adopted him. She took it upon herself she pitied Moses in his helpless state, but in the process, God used her in this really special way. Like, he used the daughter of the enemy of God to bring about the freedom of God's people, to ensure their own freedom. Like, again, God uses even adoptive moms in pretty awesome ways. Now, this is, again, especially, I think should be especially important for us to know, because not everybody can have kids naturally. And there's certain cultures and certain times where if you weren't a biological mom, that brought a lot of shame. That brought a lot of heartbreak. That brought, oh, you're not good enough. But to me, adoptive moms are even more gospel centric because of the message that it gives. The truth is, adoption is an example of God's provision in a broken world. Yes, if I know this is some overview theology, but if it wasn't for sin, all your pregnancies would be fine. You could have kids and it wouldn't hurt, and you could, if it wasn't for sin, that you wouldn't lose babies, and there wouldn't be a lot of terrible things in this world if it wasn't for sin. But we are in a broken, messed up world that needs Jesus, and yet in the middle of that, God still provides. Even when you can't have kids of your own, even when someone loses a mom in a time when they still need a mom, God finds a way to provide. I love the song we sang when we got up here. God always provides, and adoption is a wonderful way to testify to how God can provide even in the midst of the sin and the heartbreak of our world. And again, it's a gospel thing. You're going, well, why do you say that? Because Ephesians 2:15 tells us that God decided in advance to adopt us into his own family by bringing us to himself through Christ Jesus. If you're a Christian, you're adopted, spiritually speaking. And we get to put that on display. I remember about a decade ago, I've shared this story with some of you that have been with us a while, but I remember about a decade ago, I was at FFC Liberty, and we had a adoption ministry come in and visit the church, and they were telling us all about what they were doing, and the lady that was presenting said this thing that has stuck with me. I think I'll always remember it because of just the light bulb that went on in my heart. She said, if every church in America adopted one kid, we would absolutely empty the foster system. If every church just put their their resources together, and they nominated a family that wanted it anyway. And if just every church just did one, by the way, there's tons of churches that can do more than one. But if every church just did one, we would not have any kids without homes. We would shut down the foster care system. I went, whoa. And lately I did some research to make sure if that was still the case or not. As of 2022, there are 369,000 kids in the U.S. foster care system. And then you do a little searching and you find, all right, well, how many churches are there? Well, there's about 350 to 400,000, depending on who you talk to, different churches in. Yeah. So yeah, it's still the case. And by the way, what a witness, what a testimony that would be if we all got together, all the different churches and denominations says, hey, let's all work together. Let's make sure that no kid doesn't have a home. Why don't we all Catholics and Methodists and Baptists and the weird non-denominational ones that can't make up their mind and let's all work together. Let's all work together. That's us, by the way. That's us. So you know. Let's all work together and what better testimony? Like, checkmate, atheists. Like, tell me God ain't real, right? Like, that would be a wonderful way to show the love of God. We ain't done it. But look at the possibility. Look at how God could move. If you're an adoptive mom or if you have one, know that what you've experienced is God's provision. In a world that took something away from you, God is providing. And it's something to be thankful for and something to worship Him for. Not only that, we see I got to keep moving because we're running out of time here. 3 types of sacrificial love. Because listen, I don't know if you've noticed this, moms. There's a little bit of sacrifice in motherhood. Have you noticed? Have you picked up on that? If not at all, well, you will, right? So when we like to talk about the love that's the flowers and you get to bring your baby and show the baby off, or your kid makes you proud and stuff like that. We love to talk about those moments, but so much of motherhood is sacrifice. And so what we see is in here today is 3 types of sacrificial love. We saw sacrificial loss. Again, I know it's Mother's Day. We don't want to think about it, but to be a mother is to experience loss. Look at Jochebed. She lost control. Jochebed said, you know what? I love my baby boy, but I'm going to put him in the Nile River and float him. And then I'm going to give him back to the Pharaoh's daughter. Jochebed lost the control that you mamas want to have over your babies. But also Pharaoh's daughter, funny enough, lost credit. Right? She didn't have to take on raising Moses, but she actually lost credit. You're going, well, we're talking about her. Yeah, but what's her name? You notice she's the only one that doesn't get a name out of these mamas, right? Now, scholars argue, and they can guess at which Pharaoh's daughter they thought it might be, but the biblical text doesn't even give her a name. Moses' mom. It's like my mom used to joke when I was a teenager. She's like, I might as well change my name to Ben's mom. Because, like, oh, it's Ben's mom. Edie, but nice to see you. You know, like, some of y'all know what she's talking about. You just become, it's to the point where in Hebrews 11:24 it says, it was by faith that Moses, when he grew up, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter. She lost credit. Now, he did it. There's other reasons he did it. And he wasn't just like trying to stick it to his adoptive mom. He was choosing to be a Hebrew over the power and the privilege of the house of Pharaoh. But in the process, she lost credit. And one of the problems that plagues modern motherhood is there's too many mamas who are not willing to lose credit or control. And what that does is that ends up creating a lot of messed up kids growing up. Create a lot of problems, create a lot of heartbreak, because we don't want to give up those things, do we, Mom? It feels better when we get credit because we worked hard, right? We deserve credit, and we get control. I know better than whoever else, but you know what the solution to that is to understand that, Mama, you're a steward. right? You're a steward, to have a stewardship mentality. If you don't know, steward just means you're the caretaker of it. It's not yours, but you're taking care of it. And when you start to read the Bible and you start to see that children are a gift from, right? And that all good and perfect things come from, and that he probably loves your kid more than you do. Some of you mamas, you have to remember that. You're like, no, not even God loves my kid more than me. No, God loves your kid way more than you, right? And so he has given you this kid to steward, which means you're going to have to, at some point, give control of that kid to God and give credit to that to God. Because, God knit that boy or that girl together in your womb. He put a lot of work into that. And the only way for you to flourish and for them to flourish is to experience this sacrificial loss. I've seen moms refuse to do this to disastrous results. I know mamas that their kids want nothing to do with them because they won't give up control. Even when they're 40, 50 years old, their mom is still trying to control them. No good comes of that. I know mamas that are suffering much worse because they have to have that control and that credit, and it ends up being very damaging to their kids. Mama, a part of loving your babies is surrendering them. And so you have to love them with sacrificial loss. You also have to love them with sacrificial burden. We saw that, again, the burdens of motherhood. They're blessings, but there's so many burdens. Pharaoh's daughter, again, took it upon herself. Now, she could pay someone to bear a lot of that burden. Again, most of us don't have that luxury, but she still took that burden on herself. The truth is, the burden of motherhood, it tests and strengthens you in Christ-like ways. No one, I don't think, has ever said motherhood is easy. Well, they blow a lot of smoke at you, mamas, about what motherhood is, but I don't think anybody's dumb enough to tell you that motherhood is easy and isn't a burden. Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all of it. It's this burden that for some reason you keep coming back to. For some reason you keep saying, yes, I'll have some more, right? Because in the process, maybe this has not been the case for you, but in the process, you may just get to know your Creator a little more. But by God letting you cooperate in the creation of something, you begin to understand how God feels about you and what He would do for you. You begin to understand the plight and the mission of Jesus. And because guess what? What Jesus did on the cross, I know a lot of mamas that would do for their babies too. And we start to understand what it means and how we're to understand how God loves us. And so the world's going to tell you to avoid those burdens, to push off those burdens, but the best thing you can do for your spirit and your soul is to embrace it, to embrace that burden and be thankful for it and let it sanctify you and let it turn you into the woman of God that you could potentially be. But lastly, it's also loving with sacrificial risk. Again, those Hebrew midwives, they risked a lot by lying to Pharaoh. They risked life and limb to rebel against that wicked law. But we also see that Moses' mom, Jochebed, risked something. In Hebrews 11:23, it says, by faith Moses was born. He was hidden for 3 months by his parents because they saw the child was beautiful or special, depending on your translation, and they were not afraid of the king's edict. Right? They could have been, because it was a risk. But they said this kid was worth the risk. How many of you mamas say, my kid is worth the risk? Now, you may never have to risk the things that these moms in the Exodus story did, but it is a risk to raise kids in a world that could devour them. It is a risk to raise kids and put your heart into soul into them, just for them to step on what you've done for them and turn their nose up at what you've done for them. It is a risk. That's why a lot of mamas don't want to do that, because they don't want to invest in someone that may not give them back what they think they deserve. but it's a risk to be a mom like this. I've counseled mamas over the years many times who just wept over their kids' addictions or their kids' decisions, or for some reason the worst is wept with the mamas whose kids turned from the faith. I just want them to know who Jesus is. I just want them to experience the love of God. I just want to live with them forever. But they don't even think God exists anymore. It's a risk to go through that heartache and heartbreak. There's no use saying there's not. So that's why we honor you today, Mom. That's why I'm going to end today talking about 3 ways to honor the moms in your life who love you this way. And the first one is this: we need to speak their love language. Some of you are really excited about those gift bags. Others might leave them here and forget about them, right? Because you have different love languages, right? Now, love language is not in the Bible, but it is a very biblical thing. It was based on this book that was published, I think, in the 90s that basically pointed out in Scripture there are different ways that we give and experience love. And those are our love languages, like physical touch, quality time, gifts, acts of service, words of affirmation. Those are like the main ones. I would add food and memes to that if I were to add an abridged version, because memes and food are love languages to me. But there are different ways. Like some of you don't need to worry about getting your mom a card, right? All you're doing is making Hallmark money because that's not your mom's love language. Others of you better put your heart and soul into it. You better write it, and that card will be there because your mom feels loved that way. Some of you got mamas that only card she wants is a gift card. Make it rain, right? Gifts, right? Which is nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying, Mama, you're materialistic. Some people just feel love through gifts. Others, you don't need to give them anything. Just come be with them for a little while. Spend the day at your mama's house. Hold her hand, watch a movie, put your hand around her, Clean the part of acts of service. Clean the part of the kitchen cabinets that she can't reach, right? Mow her lawn. Do something to serve your mom. Whatever your mama's love language is, figure it out. Do not go through the motions and just go, well, cards, flowers, okay, and a poem or something that I pulled off the internet and copy-pasted. Like, you know what you need to do is you need to pull your head out of you-know-where and figure it out. Some of y'all think, I just don't know what she wants. She's your mom. You know. If you will stop thinking about yourself long enough to speak her love language. Because Romans 12:10 says to love each other with genuine affection. Not checking a box. Not doing it upon threat of death. But to love each other with genuine affection. Taking delight in honoring each other. We should do that to everybody. We should especially do it to our mamas. So, if you're able to speak that love language, do that. Here's an even harder way, though. Number 2, we need to forgive them. I know it's Mother's Day, and we need to pretend that you mamas don't do anything wrong ever. Guess what? I know better. You know better. You're human, too. And we need to forgive our mamas when they get it wrong. Some of you have stories of hurt and pain with your mom. Stories that you still haven't gotten over. You don't have a relationship with your mom. Maybe you don't want a relationship with your mom. And by the way, I'm not saying that we have to pretend like everything is hunky-dory with your mom, but I am saying you have to forgive her. I'm not saying force a relationship that's not there, but God says forgive. Jesus said, forgive how often? 70 times 7. Which for you math whizzes is not the cutoff. And you're like, well, I know, I counted them up. My mama did worse than that, so I guess I don't have to forgive her anymore. It's a metaphor, right? It's hyperbolic. It's Jesus is saying, keep forgiving, keep forgiving. You got to forgive. Why? Because Proverbs 15:20 says, foolish children despise their mother. I'm beginning to think that some of us have allowed the sin of our mother to make us fools. Because we don't forgive, because we despise your mom. Maybe the reason you can't enjoy Mother's Day is because you haven't forgiven your mom. And the best thing that you can do, even though she did all those terrible things, is forgive her. Doesn't mean you got to take her out to dinner. Doesn't mean you got to pretend everything is great. but you can forgive her. And even better than that, and tied, I think, pretty closely to that, is the last thing, which is the best way to honor your mom is to live righteously. Proverbs 1:8 says, do not forsake the teaching of your mother. Right? So all those things that your mama told you needed to do, you honor her when that voice in your head actually turns into you doing what you're supposed to do, even as a grown folk. Right? Some of you are like, my mom's advice was terrible. My mom's teachings were terrible. She taught me what not to do. Okay, so honor her by not doing those things that she taught you what not to do. Right? There's a lot of parents that think that verse, children obey your parents, means that mamas get to manipulate their kids for the rest of their lives. No, that's when you get grown, when you get on your own and start having kids of your own and living your own life, the way you honor your parents is not with the same type of obedience. Now, if you're at home with mama, children, obey your parents the first time. Don't make her say it 10 times. But when you're grown up, live righteously and you will honor her. Right? I didn't put it on your sheet, but Matthew 12, if you want to write that down and visit, that's a time where you as a mama might get mad at Jesus. I know you probably thought you'd never get mad at Jesus, but there was a point where Jesus is doing righteous things. He's doing kingdom things. And you know what? His mom comes knocking. His mom and his brothers come and they go and say, Jesus, your mother wants to see you. I don't know why they're Middle Eastern Jewish, not New York Jewish, but that's... But you know what Jesus did? He went, who is my mother? Who are my brothers? No, I'm doing God's work. I'm doing what God wants me to do. Y'all, it's probably not the way you wanted me to end a Mother's Day sermon, but let me just tell you this. There's going to be a time where your mom's wishes run counter to God's wishes. And you honor her by choosing God. She might not like it at the time, but you honor her when you live for God. Because the best thing you can do is give your heart to Jesus. Right? Like the best thing you can do to honor your mom, beyond all the gifts and all the sentiment, is to understand the reality of y'all's relationship and your relationship to God. And remember this, that our experience with moms and our experience as moms is designed to point us to an even better relationship with God. All the ways that your mother loved you that you are thankful for, God does it better. It's just a taste of what we get with a relationship with God. All the ways your mom let you down, God doesn't do that. God doesn't let you down. And it can point us to Him. So whether you're a biological mom this morning, you're an adoptive mom, you're an advocating mom, whether you had a great mom or a terrible mom, God can work in all of those situations to draw you to Him. And I think when all said and done, and your mom has a chance to look back, what will bring joy to her heart the most one day will be when you gave your heart to Jesus and you live accordingly. That's the best way to honor her. I can't wait for the results of that. I can't wait when you get to share with your mom all the wonderful things that have happened from how she loved you so well. I can't wait for Israel to be able to catch up with Eleanor and Glory and tell her all the ways. Because when it comes down to it, you want to talk about spending time with your mama? I want you to spend time with your mama forever. And that only happens if you both trust in Jesus as the way. We'll leave you with one thing. First, for those that are honoring mamas today, and as you go about figuring out, hopefully already, it might be too late, for some of y'all are already like, oops, I didn't do what I should have done for mama. As you're looking for ways to love her well, remember, you should do it more than just one day a year. You can honor her in the same way and do random things for her and thank God for her more than just on the second Sunday in May or whatever the case may be. But for those mamas here, let me encourage you with this. I think this is That's going to be important for somebody to know. All the stuff that's happening in your life, all the things you do that you don't get credit for, I hope you understand God sees. God sees that. And whether your kids do what they're supposed to do on Mother's Day, whether you get all the credit for it or not, God sees how well you love your kids and He rewards you. He blesses you for that. And so I understand it's not as it could be or should be, but God sees you, Mama, when you struggle, when you don't feel like you got enough gas in the tank, when you don't feel like you can do this all over again. God is able to give you what you need to be who you were supposed to be. And He sees you, and it'll be worth it, I promise you.